Tokyo Ghoul Part 1 was amazing. If the story ended there and the anime got a faithful adaptation, it probably would have been one of my top 10 anime/manga. The way that final arc was handled was full of great writing, but the start of Part 2, Tokyo Ghoul Re, was extremely disappointing. The first reason is that Kaneki, our protagonist, was reset. He had a very compelling arc in Part 1 that involved him transforming from an emotional and whiny half-ghoul who was more in touch with his human side, to a cold and vicious half-ghoul who was more in touch with his ghoul side. The problem with Re is that it starts off by erasing Kaneki and all of his development and replacing it with Heisei. This puts an extremely long pause on the great development for the protagonist that has been built up and that the audience has come to be invested in. Heisei has his own development, but he is a much less interesting character with a much less interesting arc. Kaneki's arc is put on hold for too long. But it doesn't stop there. The story also got rid of a lot of the supporting cast in Part 1 and replaced them with new ones. Everyone from Anteku does very little and barely appears. Yoshimura, Enji, and Kaya don't appear. Nishiki has a short fight in the beginning and then disappears. Toka and Yomo have a quick appearance at the shop but don't have any action. For Kaneki's personal group, Tsukiyama appears around the beginning of the 5th arc, but he doesn't really do anything noteworthy. Hinami appears with Ayato in a raid for a short amount of time. Banjo only appears in the 6th arc. For the CCG, Akira and Suzuya are the only two that remain important. Amon and Takizawa initially disappear. Amon comes back every now and then, while Takizawa was a major antagonist in the 5th arc. Akira and Suzuya do appear pretty frequently, but there are many more important characters that are skipped that these two are not enough. Instead, the story decides to focus on the Quinks, which is a squad of entirely new characters. And just like Heisei, they are less interesting than what we had before. There are two comparisons I want to make to Re's character reset. The first is Tokyo Ghoul in post-Awagiri Tree, and the second is Attack on Titan in the Marley arc. Both arcs changed up the main group of characters, but they did things that allowed the switch to be successful. For the Ghoul arc, Kaneki makes his team of Hinami, Tsukiyama, and Banjo. The first advantage is that the protagonist doesn't get replaced. The second is that the author chooses characters that have been in the story for some time. Banjo was introduced the arc before, but Hinami and Tsukiyama were introduced in the 3rd and 4th arc respectively. The only characters that were more important were Toka and Nishiki, so the amount of sideline characters was minimal. Titan's arc is more similar to Tokyo Ghoul Re's start. The Marley arc gets rid of the old cast and replaces them with a new one. The first advantage is that our perspective character is one that we already know, Reiner. While most of the other characters are new, we at least have someone to connect to. In Re, our perspective character is Heisei. He may have Kaneki's body, but he's not Kaneki. The second advantage is that the story quickly shifts back to the main group in the same arc. Eren and the Survey Corps regain their spots as the main group towards the end of the arc, and they keep that position for the rest of the story. The short shift was just used to develop some new characters and make the weight of the events and deaths more impactful. Going back to Re, it takes too long for the original cast to get back together and become the main characters again. Getting rid of the characters we've grown attached to and replacing them with new and less interesting ones is not a good move. It feels like we aren't watching or reading the same story anymore. Re also completely changes the story's focus. Before, it was about ghouls trying to survive in a world where doves and other ghouls are trying to kill them. The second half of Part 1 has Kaneki forming his own team to protect his loved ones and strike back at the opposition. It's all about the ongoing war between ghouls and doves, with the former protecting themselves from the latter. Nishiki and his girlfriend, and Kaneki and Amon's dynamic, which I'll get to next, also hint that there might be a way for humans and ghouls to live together peacefully. In Re, however, the story is about CCG members with ghoul powers doing their job. This huge shift adds to the alienation of the audience. The last thing that Re did that made it disappointing was he got rid of the powerful Kaneki and Amon dynamic. Both were new to being a ghoul and dove respectively, thus they were open-minded about the other situation. At the end of Part 1, they both respect each other, but are forced to fight to protect their loved ones. In Re, not only does Kaneki forget everything for a long period of time, but Amon becomes a half-ghoul, who also has some memory loss. The former puts a hold on the dynamic, but the latter shatters it. This might be one of the worst offenses, because their dynamic never returns. While it could be argued that they took each other's roles, this development wasn't made by choice, and the dynamic isn't utilized by the author. In conclusion, the start of Tokyo Ghoul Re is disappointing and alienating for a few, but powerful reasons. The main character and his arc are lost. Most of the important supporting characters from Part 1 rarely appear, if ever. The focus of the story is lost, and so is the dynamic between Kaneki and Amon. While the protagonist, supporting characters, and story focus do eventually return, they take too long to return, and we are not given something equally as satisfying in its place. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, and check out my manga for free online. If you enjoy my content, please consider donating to my Patreon. All important links will be in the description.